You know, there's a lot of technique playing. It's not classical technique, it's a very modern technique where they will hit the bow against the strings. So you get that da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. The snare drum is very distinctive, so that's definitely an element that Brian's employed.
Round one, secure the area. Set up perimeter. Provide cover for round two. Roger, 0-6 out.
And then also for the Predator, his tribal drums were also a really important thing. It's a pretty interesting experience continuing this franchise. Once you have your vision that you know what you got to go with, you do have to kind of put the blinders on a little bit and say, like, this is what we're committing to, and we have to go with this, you know, full steam ahead and just make the best movie that you can.
That's what we try to do, and hopefully we accomplish that.
Alien came out in 1979, and it still, to this day, remains as one of the most frightening movie monsters that have been made.
It has to appeal to the audience on sort of the primordial, basic fear level. There's also kind of a sexuality to it.
Alien, to me, was a return to not just classic monster storytelling in terms of the movie itself, but also classic monster making.
The original Alien in Ridley Scott's movie was designed by the Swiss surrealist H.R. Giger. His style had never been seen before.
And I remember looking at his artwork, suddenly realizing how it has such a weird, perverse sexuality woven through every aspect of it.
It was a fully developed world, a lexicon of these horrific imagery, you know, of human bones and machinery. Revolutionary.
Alec and I were introduced to the Alien franchise on Aliens, on the Cameron movie, because we were both a fixture at Stan Winston's studio at the time. And the newest step now with AVP Requiem is that we return to the look of Aliens.
Aliens is probably my favorite movie of almost all time. You know, it's just, from everything about it, I mean, we're just huge Cameron fans.
And the main thing when we approached the Alien Warrior was, we wanted to bring back Cameron's ridged head design.
Where that top dome is removed and it exposes this sort of network of bones and pulpy organic shapes.
Having the rigid head actually, from a lighting standpoint, looks better. And if you had like a long, smooth, reflective head, the aliens actually wouldn't be able to hide as well.
So we redid the head and the face, gave it a little bit more subtle touches. The jaw is a little more pointed. It's got a little bit more of a back-swept head.
We also created a new neck because there were certain lines and elements that we wanted to make a little more congruent between the body and the head.
And then, of course, we gave it a different paint scheme, which was, you know, each one has a slightly different paint scheme. The sepias that David Fincher and Jean-Pierre Jeunet favored have been replaced by black and metallic.
And then we also knew, since the end of the movie was going to be in the hospital on the rooftop, we wanted to make sure that the color of the aliens would try to blend in as much to all the metal piping and everything like that as possible.
Run, Molly!
There certainly are aspects of what we do that are limited by the real world.
So you had to be very, very careful about trying to not show too much of the creatures.
When you're creating a suit for a performer to wear, you are bound by the proportions of that performer. So we've come up with a lot of clever ways to cheat these proportions, extending shoulders up, extending arms out, things like that. But there have been times where we've had to seek ways to get around the limitations of a man in a suit.
Tom's just a fantastic performer in a suit. He's amazing. And half the time, because of the nature of these suits, he can't even see a lot of the time. So he's doing these performances, he's miming it all.
On Alien Resurrection and all the other Alien movies, I would have to go into the suit and I would pretty much stay in that suit for sometimes 8 hours at a time. So for AVPR, we put breaks so that we got it down to the point where I could get into that suit in about 30 minutes. When we're doing our creature designs, if I'm the right size to be in the suit, then it makes sense for me to be in the suit because I've got the experience as a performer, I've got the endurance. On AVPR, again, we're faced with having to have multiple aliens, and to support that on set, we had to have a certain number of suits ready to go.
Technology has advanced in the creation of these specialty suits in a number of ways. We have developed different techniques to allow greater movement. Servo motors have gotten much smaller and lighter weight. So whereas in Alien 3 we had a head that Tom wore with a bundle of cables coming out to controllers, now it's all internal. Puppeteers can be dealing with the performance rather than being stuck looking at a potentially bad angle. So there's lots of different little things that have come along to help us get better results.
You're not really aware, and you shouldn't be aware, of 3 different versions of facehuggers, well, 4 different versions of facehuggers to pull that off. There's the animatronic version, which runs across the ground.
And we built it as a self-contained piece that had motors inside. Through radio articulation, we could turn it on and off, make it crawl backwards, forwards, tail would wiggle.
In AVPR, there's a scene where the facehuggers get to their second group of victims, some homeless people living in the sewers. And we used our running facehugger across the floor. And then it gets to a point where it's going to leap. So the shot cuts there, and we set up one of our floppy, loose, what we call our stunt facehuggers on a piece of monofilament. And we yank on the cord, and it makes it look like the alien is leaping. We then cut to a third facehugger, which was this hand-puppeted version in a tight close-up of his face. And I was actually inside of that, gripped onto his face and making it look like the facehugger was forcing the tubule down the victim's throat. And there's a shot of an alien leaping out of the water and landing on the face of one guy. We preset the victim back like this with the alien facehugger, the stunt floppy one mounted on his face and the pull cord attached, and that loose tail wrapped around his neck. And we sort of work the beats out in reverse, since we want it to look like the alien's jumping on his face and then the tail goes around his neck. In reverse, we pull the tail off first and then the facehugger, and as we pull that off, the victim just leans forward slightly. So in reverse, it looks like it's got some impact.
We have made subtle changes to all of these characters. But hopefully they're subtle enough to keep it alive, but we're not going off the page so much that it doesn't look like it's from an alien movie. And these characters are now 30 years old, so they've got a long-lasting appeal. And I think that as long as we're showing something new and fresh within the same parameters, it's always the challenge, that they'll continue to be vibrant. Predator is one of the greatest movie monsters ever.
They're an interesting contradiction. They're extremely advanced.
But he's still, in essence, a tribal kind of primitive.
And it's that sort of strange blend of technology and primal instinct that I think is what makes, which makes the Predator a very three-dimensional character.
Well, the Predator was originally designed by Stan Winston.
He wanted something that had never been seen before. In this case, they had a really great concept, and so there would be layers of reveal of this creature, from just sounds to weird, distorted imagery of the invisibility cloaking. Then ultimately, you would see him. So it was really well laid out, different levels of surprise. In the second film, Stan and his guys did a little bit more of a insect-like quality to the creatures as well as to the design of the armor, but always still staying within the parameters established in the first one, but looking for those kind of refinements. But Paul Anderson wanted to make sure that what we were saying about the predators in this film was that this time they're fighting aliens. So his idea was that these characters would be covered in armor.
There was a certain approach to wanting to make him look big and heroic, and we were using the template more of the comic book proportions of a hero more than a monster.
We had softened his look a little bit. He needed to be made more human-like so that the audience would identify with him. The other idea was that in the first film, the predator that you saw was the equivalent of an adolescent. He was dropped on the planet to cut his teeth. By the time we got to AVP-1, that dovetailed into the idea that these predators that go into the pyramid for their training purposes, their rites of passage, are teenagers.
In AVP-R, the Strausses had us go back and reinvent him more as the warrior.
You know, this has got to be a guy who's been around the block, he's dealt with these things.
We wanted to make him really athletic, lithe, thin, powerful.
And we call him the Wolf, you know, from Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction, because, you know, he's the cleaner. He's the guy that comes in and there's a problem and solves the problem.
We try to stay respectful to Stan Winston's original design. We consider ourselves caretakers of these characters. So with that in mind, we'll start generating sketches. We sit down with our team of artists, and a lot of it's just a scattershot approach. We just, anything under the sun. We'll show the most ridiculous things that, you know, may never see the light of a projector bulb, but it's an important part of the design process.
They have all this just amazing concept artwork that they do, and they probably have like 40 or 50 different drawings of completely different type of predators. I mean, you could make the next 40 movies just based off the concepts we had. I mean, it's amazing stuff.
And we just wanted to go with something that looked sleek and old, but still very deadly.
And from this first foundational layer of lots and lots of stuff, the directors will start honing. Once everybody, the director and the studio, have signed off on that design, we start the full-scale sculpture.
What I'm seeing is just the levels, that it's not too extreme, but we need to do something to address their concern.
Basically, they took the mold, a body mold of Ian White, who plays a part of our predator, and basically completely from scratch sculpted a clay body of the wolf. And he was a much thinned down, much more muscular cut version of a predator.
Well, one of the things that you need to do anytime you design a character and you have a backstory for that character is you have to think about what are the physical representations of that character. So if this guy is supposed to be more cunning, what's the look in his eye? What's the shape of his head? What we did with this predator is that we gave him a more swept back forehead, a more aggressive profile.
We've got to show that he's been through this 100 times by showing all the scarring on the body.
Wolf's actually, you know, just a very athletic, powerful elder. He has some of the design cues that sort of indicate age. Some of those kind of spikes that grow off of his face.
And one of the cool things was we wanted to, you know, give a little throwback to the comic book fans. So that's why we kind of did, you know, sort of the broken tusk type of idea with the melted off mandible.
You can tell, if you look closely at it, it's been scarred off by alien acid. So indicating that he's been in some pretty gruesome up-close battles.
He's got one eye that's clouded over, maybe blind.
He's got like this Freddy Krueger thing on his face. We wanted to go make sure the skin had the best quality that we could, so we went back to being silicone, which is what they did the first Predator movies with. And it just gives you that translucency on the skin that you can't get with latex.
We gave his body a darker tones in general. Once we got on set, we used a lot of, he's in sewers, he's in a lake, so we used this sort of black grime to cover him with, just so that he doesn't look like a off the warehouse preening kind of brand new model. He's dirtied and banged up. The performer wears a headpiece with dreadlocks on it, but the face is cut out for maximum comfort for him. And then on top of that is the Predator's helmet. We actually used big rare earth magnets on his forehead and on the mask, so that it just sort of clunk, goes on. When we are using the Predator without his mask, it's the animatronic head that we put on Ian, and that requires 4 puppeteers on the outside to operate mandibles and brows and blinks.
Even the eyes are animatronic, which let us get an interesting level of emotion and expression that it's a little bit harder to do with an actor.
His mandibles are a little bit larger. We've also got clear webbing around them. Again, just all these small technical aspects of different materials just to be able to make some kind of a step forward in reinventing the way he's seen. He is still very much the classic movie monster, but different from the way we've seen him in AVP.
The next step of the redesign was going into his weapon set.
That bodysuit has a few armor pieces attached to it, but there are some others, backpack, wrist gauntlet, that are separately designed.
We wanted to go to the shorter blades because we felt like he doesn't need a lot of like the bigger blades, and that he can get much closer to these things and not have to worry about getting melted because he's fought so many aliens, and also he's been scarred by them too. Yeah, oh, and the whip. Yeah, the whip was actually, that was one of the really cool surprises that ADI brought to the table. That in one of the first meetings over there,
All of us kind of started looking at this one design at the same time, which was a Predator whip. And all of us just, the light bulb went on, like, oh my God, we got to have that.
this has to be in our movie. And we wrote it into the film after just seeing on that design.
There's a lot of different little parts that go into dressing and creating the Predator.
And so it was great to be able to reinvent him yet again in AVPR. But still very much, the hallmark, the Predator hallmarks are there that were part of the character ever since Stan first conceived of it.
Excited, obviously, to be able to create this hybrid. And the challenge is to take the best aspects of both creatures and combine them.
What we wanted to make sure was it had something that wasn't completely different, that tonally stuck out in the movie as well.
And that was a great opportunity to come up with an animatronic creature that just had a real life and vitality to it. Initially, there were some thoughts as to whether or not this hybrid creature was even going to play in the movie.
When Fox first sent us a script, there it was in the first couple pages, wreaking havoc in the Predator ship, but then it died in the crash.
And we're like thinking, it's got to be, just trusting our gut. It's got to be in the movie.
So the next one that we got, the Pred Alien, was essentially the new Nemesis, which is a great move.
Once it became established that it was an integral part of the story, then the studio got more and more involved in terms of our design process.
That was one of the biggest tasks for ADI, was to actually go through and resculpt, design this Pred Alien from scratch.
The challenge is to take the best aspects of both creatures and combine them so that you don't end up with something that looks like you rummaged through the costume box and put an alien head on a predator body with a tail, you know. And there's surprisingly a lot of different possible combinations. But the obvious ones, you know, the obvious predator earmarks are the dreadlocks, mandibles, you know, and coloration. So it was always just a matter of what's the percentage of predator to alien.
Basically, we started with the fundamental principle that it's mainly an alien. It's 85, 90% alien, and we can introduce 10 to 15% of predator DNA to it.
It's not like two parents, a German Shepherd and a Chihuahua or something. It's that the alien takes on characteristics of its host body. Ultimately, we created a maquette that combined the elements in a pleasing way.
One of the important things was for the color on her was to actually show that she took some of the characteristics from the predator. So we actually have the kind of more yellowishy chest with the spotting on the coloring. The rest of the back and the tail and everything is much more the deeper, darker alien tones.
Design cues of the Pred alien, though, is we added a little bit of a queen-like head to her. So if you look at the back, there are cues off of the alien queen. We did introduce some things that I know were probably controversial, like the dreadlocks.
The dreadlocks, I had sculpted a potential Pred alien head, and I wanted to put dreadlocks on it, and I'm like, boy, do I really have to sculpt all these? Wait a minute, we've got the molds of the tail, the miniature rod puppet alien from Alien 3, we got the molds of that. Luckily, it was a decent enough idea that we could improve it and refine it for the final guy. Well, once the directors in the studio have had their input and everybody agrees on what the character should look like, we start sculpting in full scale.
It's got the exoskeletal features of an alien, the tail of an alien, but he's a little bigger, more powerful. Or I should say she, actually, to correct myself. One of the really cool design features, she has a transparent dome in the front of her head, similar to the original alien. And also, within that transparent dome is two eye sockets of a human skull.
In the first film, there was a skull shape inside Giger's alien, but you didn't ever really see it.
Yeah, it's really creepy looking.
A lot of the fans know it's there, but we thought we would put that predator skull into the head and make a smaller dome over top of that. There are shots where you can see those brows. He's supposed to be about the same or slightly larger than a predator. So we lengthened the head more, gave him bigger hands, we kind of cheated the upper body proportions. So when you see Tom in the suit as the Pred alien, it's kind of goofy from head to toe because his legs look very squat. We're always very concerned that the still photographer is going to take a picture, somebody that really doesn't know that this thing is mostly meant to be shot from the waist up, releases a shot to the magazine where it looks like it's a weird dwarf alien. And that can cause great concern among the fans.
Chet was developed as another creature character suit that I could play, that I would be able to wear, so we could still have the practical value.
I want to say we made maybe it was 6 Chet suits. We had a few stunt suits with stunt heads, soft rubber stunt suits. We had hero suits that only Tom ever wore, that were pristine and kept in great shape. A couple of articulated heads that Tom could wear.
The suit construction is pretty much what we've been doing ever since we kind of took over the franchise on Alien 3, and that's a spandex bodysuit that fits me, that goes on to the core, which is a copy of my body. And then we generate the surface with foam latex, which is just whipped up. It's a chemical foam compound mixed up and injected into the mold and then cured in an oven, so it becomes a spongy foam rubber over top. This is my bladder control, because at my age, we're taping. This is the tail mount, and the idea here is to provide a base that we can attach one of the tails to. We have a hard, rigid tail that kind of supports its own weight. We have a floppy tail, depending on the shot. Basically, it has a vertical sheet of nylon in it, which has been cut to a silhouette that has that swoopy shape to it. So it holds the tail in that position, and it also holds it pretty well vertical, and then as I turn, it can kind of curl to the right or to the left. And because of the weight, we also attach a line to it, you know, a puppeteering line to help take the weight off. But this tail on the hybrid Pred Alien is longer than the Aliens, so it's heavier. So if I lean forward with the head, I can kind of counterbalance teetering on my legs, so it sort of works out pretty well. The animatronic Pred Alien head takes 3 puppeteers on the outside to make everything operate. There's openings in the neck that I can see out of.
I can't find that
One
balance.
eye.
Yeah, Jenny's pointing out the eye hole.
There's neither.
So I use that mainly just to look at landmarks, you know, areas on the set, so at least I have some idea of where I'm at and which way I'm facing. You want to be respectful to the inner voice inside, the voice that has brought us to where we are ever since we were kids and just loving movie monsters, and it's a constant battle of the inner voice and the practicality, and admittedly it's hard to get through some of the days. But in the end, you come up with the creature, the look of the creature, and you put it out there and you just hope that it's going to click with the fans. Then we count that as a huge success.